Hello and welcome to another Delboy recording. This one's a little bit different, or should I say similar to one that I've only done one time before, and that is answering a question specifically within a semi-review of something. So just to elaborate on that, Down the Rabbit Hole, who has a great stream, by the way, and a channel that I highly talk about in my blogs every week, asked me some interesting questions. Basically, it ran like this. It said, speaking of grumbling about just selling toys, I've still got that Amazon catalogue, but I'm curious to hear what you think of the Quest 3 and how many games support its better graphics. My old PlayStation VR 1 is on its last legs, so I was thinking of upgrading to the PS VR 2, but Sony appear to have lost interest in supporting PS VR 2, so maybe a Quest 3 should be the way for me to go. What do you think? Question mark. If nothing else, it would be a great way to watch 3D films, as you mentioned. I've enjoyed several films, and that might be a selling point to me. So there's a lot in there, sort of like for me to answer, and I haven't really done a review of the new Meta 3. The reason for that has been time, generally, how much time I've put into my new product, which has not been an awful lot, and how much I know about VR, which is, I would say, a layman's good average, being as I've had in my life a Virtual Boy, I've had a Meta 2, I've now got a Meta 3, I've still got the PSVR 1 sitting down there, which you can just see the white bands of, and of course I think we've all tried strapping our phones to the front of our face using cardboard VR or buying a proper case that your camera can fit in and fitting it in front of your face and watching a few VR things. So really the question that you've got is quite a difficult one, because it goes along the line that everybody has to cross or go along, and that is, what do you want your headset to do? And that's exactly what I did when I purchased my new Meta 3. It was quite a simple task for me when I made my decision to buy it and not go down the PSVR 2 route, which I could also go along if I want. But let's look at a headset as standard, what you actually get. Now, this is an Oculus 2 or a Meta 2. It still has its normal strap handles. The front has got some tracking cameras that you can see 4 of, which are also cameras in their own rights. It has the standard lenses. Now, these lenses are the old type, which are pancake lenses, but they have ridges around the outside. It's almost like the old days when you used to have a black and white 14-inch TV and you had a magnifier in front of it. If you've ever seen those magnification screens, they all had a groove that went around, and it was called a magnification lens. And that's what these use, on top of the fact that they use an LED screen. The resolution is quite high. I can't quite remember off the top of my head what the the Meta Quest 2 is, but it's beyond 1080p. It's more in the 2000s per eye, and what we have to remember is it's per eye. There is one panel behind here, operating at a high resolution, and each lens is pointing at that panel, and the only thing that you have to change really on it is the hertz rate, which this supports up to 120, so it's quite smooth. Okay, So on top of those lenses, you can put your own prescription lenses in, just like a lot of the VR headsets can now. So you don't have to wear contact lenses, you don't have to wear glasses. You can have some special lenses made and placed into here. If you don't do that, then obviously you need to adjust this so that your glasses don't scratch the lenses. Now I've put some guards, they're blue and red, that raise it above the lenses so that my frames can't scratch. But also this rubber can be pulled out as a spacer. So basically, you can see this very well. It's a spacer, so basically my glasses will not cause a problem. The only adjuster for your eye, which is called IPS, which is the space between your the pupils and the width of these lenses, is done via a switch which is held in the middle and has 3 distinct settings. I think they are 55, 63 and 66, which means that if your IPS doesn't match those 3, you can have a distortion, and from that point of view the immersion can disappear, because you'll have a ghosty type of effect, or your eyes will cross, and the depth of field won't be particularly good. I think that's one of the major dislikes about this particular headset, was that you couldn't adjust the IPS enough. That being said, the one in the middle, 63, was so close to what my IPS is, it wasn't a drawback for me. And I think that's what Oculus were hoping for. That the ones that they specifically set hit the middle ground of many people that are out there. So that's what I can say about this particular headset. They all seem to have either a cloth or a silica cover, which is great for the sweat that you can actually get on these, because there is some heat that you have to be aware of. These things are strapped to the front, and all the battery and power goes into these, and so they generate heat. The more graphic orientated the thing that's in front of you, the more heat this is going to generate, and you will therefore feel your face sort of like getting warm after prolonged play. And let's talk about prolonged play. How much play can you get out of these? Now, that's where the PS VR doesn't really have an issue, but does. See what I mean? It's very, very complex. The PSVR 2 is a tethered headset. It is permanently connected by a wire from the side of the device to the actual PS5, and therefore you are strapped to however long the cable is. It is not wireless. It cannot not be connected to the PS5 to actually play, and therefore you are stuck. You can buy longer cables, of course, but then you still have cable strapped around you, almost like when you're using an electric mower, you know, where you're constantly moving the strap away, or when you're hoovering without a battery hoover. If you're using a powered hoover in the wall socket, then you're constantly moving around that flex. That's exactly what's happening with the PSVR 2. So battery on this becomes a problem, because it's all about how much you're pushing into the unit and how much you're draining. The more powerful the program you're running, the more it's draining, and therefore the less power that can go into it, because this has the unique ability of being able to be wireless, where you're untethered totally, or wired, which means that you're connected to your PC. Your PC will supply a power to it, and therefore it will trickle charge while you're playing. Now, to me, when I'm playing a game, I usually play, depending on what the game is, untethered. So I like the ability that I can go into a totally different room play a game with a bigger boundary. In other words, a bigger play area for me to play in. That means I'm not knocking things round left, right, and centre. But if I want to play a more immersive game and a game that's got better graphics, I have the ability to hook this up to my PC. It will recognize it on Steam. It will therefore provide me with an even bigger database of games, and they'll be able to be played through this headset without having a Valve VR headset or other headset. You can't do that with the PlayStation 5. So take note there, Keith. You buy a PSVR 2 headset, it's tethered to PS only. That is what you're getting, and the games are going to be structured based around what PlayStation will release. There is no extensive library other than what PlayStation will allow you to play. So I'm going to put this down now because this is old technology. This has many features that my new one has, but basically it is now becoming slightly redundant. And we move to the Meta 3, which in this case I've got a deluxe head strap on. The nice thing about the deluxe head strap on is it has a battery. So basically I can add batteries that are pre-charged. They just clip on the back, make a ding noise, and there you are. I've got some extra battery life. Now, we were talking about battery life before. This is a major hiccup on this particular device. Right now, with the firmware as it is, you will struggle to get more than 2.5 hours. And then with this battery pack, which by the way is not Meta's own, this is a Bobo VR Pro headset with battery. This battery will provide me with the maximum of about 45 minutes. So you're looking at just over 3 hours. And to be quite honest, I've never had my headset on longer than 3 hours, other than once when I watched a film that was over 3 hours long. So when it comes to playing games, I think the longest time I playing a game was about an hour and a half, which meant that it was perfect for me. Now, just like the other one, this one can be tethered to your PC and it can be by itself. Now, based on that, it means that the new hardware in here will make things even better when it's standalone for those games, and slightly more better with the Steam because of the resolution change for the lenses that are in here. Now, if I can tilt this to you, you can see the lenses in there, but it's not going to be that particularly good a view for you. I talked about the lenses in the previous ones. These are standard pancake lenses. They have no groove. They are pure pass-through lenses, which means there is no groove distortion. So it will be like looking through a window. So from that point of view, as long as there is nothing else that breaks your immersive VR experience, you've got a great device. Now you can see on this that there is a light blocker there, and there is a light blocker around here and all around and at the bottom. But you will notice that I need a new silicone guard for this because it doesn't help too much with the nose. So where I put my face inside this headset, you can have light bleed at the bottom, but that is at the bottom. That would be light shining up. So as long as you're not too bothered about that, there is very little to destroy your immersion. The other thing about those lenses is they have what they call in this in the terminology world of VR, something called FOV and sweet spot. Now the sweet spot on a PSVR 2, and I looked this up specifically for you down the rabbit hole, is that it's got a very, very sharp, small sweet spot. And that means your immersion into VR can be broken up quite easily by something called, I think they called it the swing door effect. It's where there is distortion that breaks up the immersive experience, like somebody shining a bright light at you or something like that. It can destroy the immersion and therefore destroy the atmosphere. This particular device has pancake lenses on top of LED, which has got slightly better brightness levels, okay, and therefore the immersion is less likely to be destroyed. The swing door effect is neither here nor there, because there is also an IPS dial, which is just there, which basically increments between 55 and 71, which means that you've got a 1% increment all the way along, and therefore you can get it direct for your eyes, and it should be covered by those numbers, between those numbers. That was very important to me, wearing glasses and basically wanting to have an immersive experience. I didn't want a ghosty effect, especially if I was wanting to watch a film. Now, you can get an app on your phone called IPS Camera or IPS Picture. There's lots of them in the shops. They're all free. And you just look at the camera in your phone and it will tell you what your IPS is. If you don't know your IPS, Specsavers or many of the people that do eye tests per year will tell you what your unique IPS is. I now know what my IPS is, and I've dialed it in, and I've not had any problems with this device. This I didn't really pick up upon, but it's got these 3 lenses here, right? And this is called a Meta 3. And somebody pointed out to me, oh yeah, look, 1, 2, 3. They've even put the emblem on the front of the device. Didn't pick up upon it. I just went, what are those 3 lenses on the front? They look so different to the blank plate that you get on the old one. These are cameras, one of them being specifically to set the depth of field, which is the middle one. The other ones are pass-through cameras. They are quite high megapixel rate, and they are therefore one of the unique selling features of the Meta 3, which is mixed VR, mixed reality VR. This is where you have a pass-through camera that is just like, which you can activate by just tapping the side a couple of times on the side, and you will see the outside, and it's sharp enough that I can read the text off of my monitors. That's how good it is. It's not 100%. There is a sort of a haze, not a haze, a sort of a distortion, like if you were in a desert and somebody was taking a picture of the desert, you have that heat sort of like displacement, which just shows you how hot the environment is. It has that type of thing, but it's not extensive. It's not terrible. It's so sharp, in fact, that some of the games that were released on at the time that this came out was mixed reality games, for which there are more coming out every week. In fact, there was a couple that came out this week. So they seem to be concentrating on what they call mixed reality VR. I've got one mixed reality VR game other than the one that they gave me, which is like a tabletop game. It's like you can you set a boundary for yourself where the table is. It then lays down the board game, and it's got castles, and they all lift up, and all of the squares are therefore the path of the game, like playing Game of Life. And you pick up the dice and you roll it, and it rolls onto the playing field, and then you see the playing pieces move, or you can pick them up and move them. It's all that sort of stuff. It's got me intrigued at the moment. The one that came with it for me as a board game was one where the aliens are coming in to destroy my house. I scanned all of the walls of my house here, this room here. It did it as a mesh. And when I started to play, the aliens came through the windows, through the walls. They started destroying the walls. And therefore, you had a mixed reality of seeing things that were real, like my monitors and everything around. And as they smashed their way through the walls, it was a cartoon type effect where the aliens were trying to come through the walls, and all I had was a gun. And I had to use my gun to fire behind my chair, behind my bed, everywhere. behind the TV. They were crawling out from behind the TV, everything. A very fun game, but very simplistic because mixed reality is still in its infancy. But I'm moving away a little bit now. I'm not really mentioning the drawbacks too much. And really, I'm back to what's your point of view of what you want this game for. The thing I've learned about with the PSVR 2 is, like you say, they don't seem to be developing too much for it. It's got the graphical edge because it's got an OLED display, not an LED display. And from that point of view, you've got things like ray traced graphics, all this sort of stuff. But how good is ray traced graphics and having higher resolution and all of that if you're tethered to a wire all the time and you're limited to what Sony are going to release? The opposite is the Meta 3. It's not got the best display because it's LED. It's not got the best battery because it's not always tethered. But it's got a mass amount of games, all of different qualities. Some are real shit, some are great. But you've also got the Steam library of games, and these games are also allowed you to be side quested. Now, a side quest is a new sort of like term to me even a couple of years ago, where I can install games that aren't in the store at the moment that people are developing. And this is a big plus for going beyond the norm in regards to what you want to constantly play. So there is at the moment, if you look at even the Retro Week that was on YouTube this week, where you can actually design your own room and play a BBC emulator in VR. You could do that with the Commodore 64. You can do that with the Spectrum. So VR is now coming into emulation. And this is where the big selling point for me comes to, for you down the rabbit hole. And that is, do you go for the Meta 3 or do you go for the older Oculus 2? And this is where it goes down to, what do you want to use it for again? Because you can now buy an Oculus 2 for very, very cheap, because the Meta 3 is now the premier headset. And so therefore people are migrating away from the Oculus 2 to this device, which means that eBay is full of people selling their old headsets. From that also point of view, because it's so cheap, you don't necessarily have to use it like a headset. You could wipe it and use it just as an emulation device. You could basically switch it on and load up emulators only and load up films only, and that would be fine. And you could use it whatever games you want. And I suppose, without wanting to go down the obvious route, play pirated games. I'm not saying that's what I do, but what I'm saying is it's a possibility to you. I wouldn't do that with the premier device, the Meta 3. I do not want to get blocked because it is also a connected device to servers, and therefore they can probably detect you've got a piece of software on there that is not sanctioned, and they can probably block your account. See Alan in what happened when he lost his Facebook account, not because of anything to do with piracy, but just what it meant to his Oculus account. So downsides are, yes, you have to have an Oculus account. Battery life, pretty poor. Not as fast, because obviously the power of the device is in the headset only, and you're not taking the power from your PC or from your PlayStation 5 device. Walk the line is all I can say about this. What do you want to use it for? My main use is watching 3D films and playing the odd game. From that point of view, I wanted as sharp a visual as possible and to be able to watch films in the comfort of my chair. And then if I wanted to play something very fast and physical, I could take this headset away totally from my PC, have it play over Wi-Fi, and play games from the headset alone without having to be connected to anything. And from that point of view, this is brilliant. You also have to therefore think about, if you've got a family that want to use a headset, then the obvious answer is, again, the Meta Free, because when you've got the PSVR2 headset, it doesn't use profiles, which means that when you take it off of your headset and you pass it to your wife or your kids, they've got to adjust everything for them. And then when they're finished with it, you've got to adjust it all back for you. This device, the Meta Free, does it by profile. So you sign in, it recognizes your profile, and all the settings come back. So it remembers all of the settings that you had before, which means you take it off your head and you pass it across to them, and they've got their settings done instantly without them having to touch anything. This is not an extensive review, but I'm hoping it answers a number of questions for my mate down the rabbit hole. He's such a great bloke. And I've heard him talk about how immersive he is with his games for No Man's Sky in particular. I think he might also have Gran Turismo. I therefore don't have too much advice for him, because if I tell him to go out a Meta Free and then he misses out all of the beauty that Gran Turismo Free and play and No Man's Sky, he'll smack me in the head. But I will say this: there are less and less games coming out, and you can still play No Man's Sky with the headset that you've got. And if that's good enough for you, then basically all of the additional options that the Meta Free give you will probably far outweigh the reasons to buy a PSVR2 headset. If I had the money, I would buy a PSVR2 headset as well, but I don't. So the choice was there for me as well, because there is my PS5. But I went with the Meta Free because of the things that I needed, which was the flexibility of not being tethered all the time and watching films, which was a big thing for me. And with that, I'm going to end this. Hope you found that very intriguing. I don't know quite what my next video will be. I've been speaking to my friend Denny, and we're going to watch Doctor Who this weekend, which is on Saturday. It's the first of the specials that lead us up to a new era for Doctor Who, and it's also the 60th anniversary. So there will be a lot of people out there that are going to be streaming, doing what they call watch-alongs. I'm not a fan of Doctor Who watch-alongs, and the reason for that is watch-alongs are brilliant when you're with your friends and seeing their reactions. But for me, I need to take in everything that's going on with Doctor Who, all the Easter eggs, all the stories, the sidelines, the jokes to people that get the in-joke, and so forth and so forth. So me and Denny said, we'll do one afterwards then, Del, shall we? So I'm going to be setting up this weekend a chat with Denny on whether we like that actual episode or not, whether we thought it is a huge leap in the quality of the show after a couple of years where it's not been for everybody, should I say, and just talk about it in general. Probably be about a half-hour chat, an hour chat. I hope you all come along to it. That will definitely be happening straight after the Doctor Who episode. So with that, I'm preaching, by the way, to people that are only watching this for VR. But with that, I'm going to say salute and hope you like this video, and say have a great time. But most of all, keep playing those games. We love them all. Bye-bye. Salute. Excelsior.